Welcome back, Tigers! In this video, we're going to learn how to use Zapier to create a Google Calendar event when a record is created or updated in Salesforce. Our objective is to create a Zap that will work in all scenarios while also being very cost effective. We will learn two different ways to achieve this automation, one using Zaps only and another using Flow to invoke an outbound message. Now let's go check out how to automate Salesforce and Zapier to create Google Calendar events. Okay, so our first step is to go over to Zapier and we're going to create a brand new Zap. Our trigger is going to be Salesforce. Our event is going to be update field on record. We'll choose our account. And then our object is going to be our custom object called Google Calendar Event. Our field is going to be the status field that holds whether or not it is scheduled. And then in the field updated timestamp, this is very important. You have to put this in if you want Zapier to fire and check for records that were last modified. In our specific scenario, we want to look for the status to change to scheduled. We should test this trigger and we should see our record get pulled up here that we have right over here in Salesforce. Our next step is to add a path. And then our first path is going to be scheduled, event does not exist. This is going to look for a value in the Google Calendar event ID. So in this path, we're looking for that field to be blank. I'll choose Google Calendar Event ID field, and then we're going to look for does not exist. Then we're going to create a Google Calendar event. We're going to create detailed event. You'll choose your calendar, and then we want the Blue Tiger Academy calendar in there. Our summary is going to be the name of our Google Calendar event record in Salesforce. This is just the name of the event on the Google Calendar. And then we're just going to map our start and our end times. Be very careful when you're clicking around here that you don't have anything extra on either side of this. And then we're going to use our color code on our event to specify which color we want the event to get created in. And just so that you can see how our color codes work, we do have a little link over here that we're going to share in the description below. So here's the color IDs 1 through 11 that you need to specify in the color code for Zapier to create the Google Calendar event. And how we set it up in our org is we just assigned a specific color code number to a value in our event type pick list. So we're just using the case function to look for a specific value and then assigning a specific color code to that value. If you wanted to invite attendees, you have to explicitly put in the email address here of each person. You cannot put a list. If you have more than one, you will have to list out each attendee individually. If you wanted to add or remove a bunch of attendees, you would have to actually do a secondary action that adds attendees to your Google event. We're not going to get into that in this video, but that is a feature that you could leverage. And yes, it will cost you another task. Those are all the fields that we wanted to map there. So we're going to test this step and then we should expect to see a Google Calendar event get created. And we do. So we see 2024 Tiger Tech Talk, September 16th from 4 to 5. Is that correct? So the answer is yes, all that is correct. And then our last step over here that we want to do is update the Salesforce record to have the ID of the Google Calendar event that we just created. So we're going to choose update record. The object that we want to update is the Google Calendar event. The record we want to update is in our custom tab because this is the record that triggered this Zap in the first place. So you'll choose this object ID field. That is the record ID of this record right here. And then we're going to update our Google Calendar event field to be the ID of the Google Calendar event. But continue there. We will test this step. And then we should see the ID of the Google Calendar event get populated, and we do. Beautiful. Now, another scenario that we want to solve for with this Zap is what happens if the Google Calendar event is canceled. So if a user changes this status from scheduled to canceled, we want to delete the Google Calendar event from our Google Calendar. So how would we update this Zap to accommodate that? In our trigger, we're only looking for scheduled. Now we need to let this fire every time the status field is updated, because this is just looking for a specific value, and we can't do scheduled, canceled. That doesn't work. Zapier does have a feature that allows you to get into sub-zaps. That got really frustrating for me. I do have a solution in option 2 that we're going to show you in this video. Going to enable you to solve every single scenario under the sun. I just want to illustrate what you would do here in this scenario. If you wanted to add cancel to this, you would just remove the value from the status field, and then we're going to let the record come in, and then we're going to change this to look for canceled event. On this path, we need to add a status equals scheduled. On this path, we need to look for our Google Calendar event to exist, because if it doesn't exist, we can't delete it. And we need to look for our status to be canceled. If the status is canceled, we then want to delete our Google Calendar event. So we're going to do delete event. Our calendar is going to be our Blue Tiger Academy calendar. The event that I'm going to search for is on the record that came into this Zap, the Google Calendar event ID field right there. And then I'm going to notify my attendees. So I'll set this to true, and then I'll click continue. And then the record that I'm working with, it's saying that there's no data, and it's because this record is still showing a status of canceled. So let's make it find new records. All right, so now let's go with this record here, and then let's test this step. Okay, that said it was successful. So let's go to our calendar and let's just make sure our event is gone. And it is, perfect. And then the next step we want to do is we want to now update this Google Calendar event record to remove this ID, because that event ID doesn't exist anymore. So we're going to add another step here. We're going to choose Salesforce, and we're going to update a record. The object that we're going to update is our Google Calendar event. The record that we're going to update is the record that came into this Zap originally. And then we want to set the Google Calendar event field to null, but you can't in Zapier. It's a limitation based on what I found. If you guys have found a way to do it, let me know. The best thing that I can figure out is I can put delete in this field. We can create a Google Calendar event flow that will update the Google Calendar event ID field to be null whenever it sees a value of delete. So we have this flow here. This is just a before save flow, so I'll open this up and show you how that works. You'll just create a new record triggered flow. We're making it fire on the Google Calendar event object when the record is updated. It's a before save flow, so it's optimized for fast field updates. And then in our decision element, we are looking for the Google Calendar event ID to have a value of delete. If it does, then we have an assignment element that is then assigning the Google Calendar event ID field to have an empty string assigned to it, so it'll wipe out the value. So what's supposed to happen is Zapier will update this field to say delete, and then our flow will update it to remove delete, and it will be null again. I know, a lot of steps just to get a field to be null. Let's go ahead and we're going to activate this flow. Then we'll come back to Zapier, and then we're going to test this. All right, so this says the data was updated, and let's come back over here. Let's refresh this, and we can see over in our field history tracking, I enabled that for a couple of these fields so that it's easy to see what's happening. We can see that all those actions did happen. So our Google Calendar event went from having a value to delete, and then from delete to being null. So all that is working perfectly. All right, so let's go ahead and save this Zap. We're gonna rename it. And now Zapier's still upset. It's not letting me publish yet. Let me just get this worked out real fast here. Okay, now I can publish this. So now if I wanted to test this for real, let's go ahead and clone this record. So now Zapier will fire in 2 minutes. Let's go to our Zaps. Okay, here's my Zap, and I'm gonna go to my Zap history. And then in 2 minutes from when I edited the record, I will be able to see that this Stripe Showcase event came in here, and then it should create the Google Calendar event. And our Zap is not firing. Why not? Well, this record was created with a status of scheduled. So our Zap doesn't run on record creation. So that's annoying. So let's go ahead and trigger it this way. Don't worry, I have a solution for you in option 2. All right, so now this should have triggered the Zap. Now let's talk about some things that we're gonna satisfy in option number 2. Option number 2 is going to allow us to create a flow that is going to create an outbound message that will fire whenever our start time is changed, whenever our end date is changed, whenever our status is changed to scheduled or canceled, whenever a record is created net new with a status of scheduled. So all those different scenarios will be satisfied with one flow and one Zap. In our option 1 here, we would have to create multiple sub-Zaps that make one Zap fire. So when a record is created, when the date changes, when the status changes and has a certain value. So it's a lot heavier of a lift to build all that in Zapier. So option number 2 is going to be much more efficient for us. All right, our Zap ran successfully. You can see that here, and we can see that I made the Stripe Showcase from September 17th at 4 p.m. through the 24th at 5 p.m. And that worked perfectly. Let's go ahead and refresh this. We should see that the Google Calendar event ID got updated, and it did. So that is perfect. So now if we set this to canceled, then this should trigger another Zap in 2 minutes, and then our record should be deleted from our Google Calendar. Now, one thing to note is that this particular Zap is taking 2 tasks every time it runs. So every time the status is changed to scheduled, it's going to run. Every time the status is changed and it's not scheduled or canceled, it's still going to run. It's just not going to perform any actions. Okay, it finally ran, and we can see that our event was removed from our Google Calendar. And then if we come back to our record in Salesforce, we should see that the Google Calendar event ID was wiped, and it was. So all that's running perfectly. That did cost 2 tasks. And yes, these tasks, when you're testing, count against your paid task limits that you have every month, which is a little annoying. All right, let's do option 2, because this option is so much more efficient for us in the long run. So it requires us to set up 2 things. One is an outbound message, and one is a flow that triggers that outbound message. And it sounds more complicated than it is, don't worry. I do have one outbound message. I'm going to set up a new one. You choose your object that the outbound message is going to be firing from. So in this case, it's Google Calendar event. Then you're just going to give it a name. Any name is fine. And then you're going to specify the endpoint URL, which we're going to get that from Zapier. So I'm going to leverage the work that I did in this Zap, and I am going to duplicate it and just change the trigger. I'm going to call this outbound message. So I'm going to change this trigger to a new outbound message. One of the awesome things about an outbound message trigger is that it's instant, and you don't have to wait for that 2 minutes that seems like forever. We're going to go to our test, and then this is where it gives you that endpoint URL that Salesforce is asking for. So you're going to put that in here. And then you're going to choose which fields you want to send over to Zapier. So you're going to select any fields that you need to use in the Zap. It doesn't matter if you include fields that aren't needed. Now, another thing that an outbound message is also good for, if you have formula fields that you want Zapier to use, you have to use an outbound message to make formula fields show in Zapier. I know it's a weird limitation. I'm not sure why or how that even happens, but that's the way that is. So we've got our outbound message set up, and now we're going to set up our flow. So we're going to create a new record triggered flow. This is going to be on our Google Calendar event object. This is going to fire whenever the record is created or updated. And then here's where you can use the power of Flow in Salesforce to completely control when you trigger this outbound message to then trigger Zapier. So we will say we have a lot of criteria here, right? So we have event is new, or the status is changed, or date time is changed. And so our first criteria, we're going to use a resource here. We're going to create a formula that's going to check to see if this record is new. It's going to be Boolean, and then it's just going to be the is new function. So if the record is new, we also want to check for our status to be changed. And we're going to have custom logic on this, don't worry. It's going to get a little hairy. Our status needs to be either scheduled or canceled. Okay, and we'll look for either scheduled or canceled. Next is our date time could change. So we'll look for our start date. We'll look for our end date to change. Now let's do our custom logic. If the record is new, and the status is scheduled, we want it to fire. Or if the status is changed and the status is changed to either canceled or scheduled, or we also want it to fire if the start date is changed or the end date is changed. Any of these criteria could trigger this outbound message, and you can get as fancy as you want, as you can see. Now we're going to look for the outbound message here under actions, and then you'll have outbound message listed right here. This is my outbound message, so I'm going to send outbound message, and then I'll save that. All right, we'll activate this. Okay, now our flow and our outbound message is all set up, and we can test this trigger. So let's go ahead and let's clone this. So this should trigger the outbound message. Let's test this trigger. Let's see if it found it. All right, beautiful. So let's make sure it found the right record. Yep, Safari Sales Rally. And so that should then come down the path to then create this record. Now you can see that we cloned our Zap, but nothing's working because it's completely different now. So we need to change out all of our fields here. Our first path is looking for our event to exist. So remember, that was looking at the Google Calendar event field. And that's this one right here. This one is looking for our status. Perfect. Then our detailed event needs to be updated as well. So this name is going to come from our outbound message name. The start and end time, same thing. This is going to come from our outbound message. And then our color code will also come from our outbound message. And we can test this step, and it is saying no. So the issue is that the number is coming through as 9.0, and we really only want it to come through as 9 because that's the value that Google is accepting. I'm going to update my formula field in Salesforce really quickly here. All right, let's come back here. Let's choose a record again. we can see now that 9 is coming in as a value instead of 9.0. So just be aware of that whenever you're using an outbound message. We'll continue with this selected record. And then now this should be successful. Perfect. All right, now we should see our event on our Google Calendar. And we see it on September 17th from 4 to 5. And that is correct. Color code is 9, which is kind of a purpley, which is what we see. Okay, the record ID here needs to be fixed, so we didn't fix that yet. So on this is going to be the record ID of the record that came into this Zap. So it is that ID right there, the record ID of our Google Calendar event record. And then we're going to put in the ID of the Google Calendar event. So that is still right. There's no error there. And now we can test this and just make sure that the field gets updated on our test record. We'll refresh this. So that got updated successfully. And it's actually creating 2 events here because we tested twice, which is okay. We're going to work on our canceled event path. So we've got to update all of these fields. So we'll choose our Google Calendar event field. This one is going to be our status. Okay, and then we're going to delete our event. So we're going to get the value from our Google Calendar event field here on our record. And then we're going to update Salesforce. So that is going to be the record ID here. And then we're going to make Google Calendar event say delete, and then the flow should take over from there. All right, so now let's update this to say canceled. Then we should be able to test this. Okay, let's go back here. We'll find new records. It should find our record that is marked as canceled. Perfect. We will continue with selected record. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to test this step. So it doesn't like the event ID. Let's go back and check that. Here it is. Now let's test that. It's all about getting the right record to test with. And then we will test this step. And that was successful. And then we can come here. We can refresh, and we would expect to see that the Google Calendar event ID is removed, and it is. Now let's activate this Zap, and at least we can test right away. We don't have to wait the 2 minutes, which is nice. All right, so this Zap is active. I'm gonna come over to my list of Zaps here. I'm gonna turn off this one. I'm just gonna leave my outbound message one on. I'm gonna go to Zap history. The Zap's getting triggered every time the status changes, but at least it's not using any tasks, so that's good because no tasks are executing, so it's just getting triggered. So let's delete all these so I don't get confused. All right, so we'll get rid of all those. Now let's clone this record. Our Zap should run right away as soon as we create this record. So our other Zap wouldn't work on create, but this one should because it has the outbound message that's firing. So let's come here. Okay, so this said it fired, but it didn't do anything. Why not? So let's see here. Right here is the problem. Let's go into our Zap. And so our problem is right here. So I think I selected the wrong field in here, in actually this one. Okay, here's the right one. So it's not this one that I chose here. Boy, that's an easy mistake to make. You want to choose this one. And if the record that you're testing with doesn't have a value in the Google Calendar event field, then you're not going to be able to select it. Very easy to make these mistakes in Zapier. So make sure you select the right one there. All right, let's publish this and let's test this again. Okay, we're gonna go to our Zaps, go to Zap history, and then we'll just clone this. huh? All right, so 2 tasks were done, so that's great. So we should see here, we have our Tiger Roar workshop from 1 to 5. That is the correct time. And let's come here and let's just make sure that our Google Calendar event ID got updated on our record, which it did. All right, perfect. So this fired on create. Now let's change the date. And then we'll change it to a different day. Let's save that. And this should trigger it. But our Zap isn't set up to update our date and time, is it? So this should just fire and it's not going to run any tasks. So we need to update our Zap to accommodate date time changes. I can show you how to do that. All right, so let's add a path here. We'll edit the Zap. We'll add a path. And this path is going to look for a scheduled event where the value in the Google Calendar event ID exists. So we will choose Google Calendar event ID exists and our status is scheduled. Okay, and if that does happen, then we want to update our Google Calendar event. So we're going to do an update event. The event that we want to update is in the custom tab here, and the ID is in our Google Calendar event ID field right there. And you can map the name if you want to. We don't have anything firing on map name changes. You would need to update your flow for that. But the start date and start time we do. So let's go ahead and put those in. And that's the only thing we want to update here. Okay, and let's make this happy so that we can publish it. So now our update should fire the Zap to update our date time on our Google Calendar event. So I'm going to go to Zap history here. I'm then going to update this record again. So I'm just going to change it to be on the 16th. We'll save that. We should see the Zap fire right away. All right, there it is. So 1 task was created and our Google Calendar event was updated to be from 12 to 2:30 on the 16th now. So that fired perfectly. Our last step is to test our canceled. So we'll change the status to canceled. We'll then come back to our Zap history. We'll mash the refresh button 20 times. There it is. Now we should see that the Google Calendar event is gone from the 16th, and then we should see the Google Calendar event ID value is removed, and it is. And that's how you create a Zap and Zapier that will trigger off of an outbound message and a flow. It gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more control over when that Zap is going to fire. That's it. That's a wrap. Be sure to subscribe to Blue Tiger Academy so you don't miss out on the next video we are working on that will show you how to configure this same exact automation in N8N. N8N is an application that's very similar to Zapier, and we want to figure out which one is better at automating tasks and which one costs less to do it. Let us know in the comments below if you have any specific applications you're trying to connect with Salesforce. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.